Hello, grade 10s. So today we are working with angles in a Cartesian plane from slides 28 to 34 from the trigonometry PowerPoint. Okay, so before we get started, I just want to define what quadrants are and where they lie. So with a Cartesian plane like this, we have 0 degrees, 90 degrees, and we always work anti-clockwise with angles, and that's why we're going in this direction. 90, this would be 180 degrees, 270 degrees, and then 360. And how we label these quadrants is this will be quadrant 1, between 0 and 90. Quadrant 2 will be between 90 and 180. Quadrant 3 will be between 180 and 270, and then quadrant 4 will be between 270 and 360. And we use Roman numerals just to label the quadrants. Okay. So if we look at these examples down here, they're saying to us, determine in which quadrants the following angles lie. So we have this 142 degrees, and you can see here 142 lies between 90 and 180. So we know that it's going to be, now this doesn't have to be exact grade 10s, we know it's going to be somewhere in quadrant 2 because it lies between 90 and 180. So this angle over here is 142 degrees. Okay, so this is in quadrant 2. 338 lies between 270 and 360, so we know that it's going to be in this quadrant here somewhere. So that angle there is 338, so that's in quadrant 4. If we look at 31 lies between 0 and 90, so we know it's in this quadrant over here somewhere. 31 degrees, so that's in quadrant 1. 215 lies between 180 and 270, so we know that's going to be here somewhere. And that angle there is 215 degrees, so that's in quadrant 3. So 142 is in quadrant 2, 338 is in quadrant 4, 31 quadrant 1, 215 quadrant 3. So now you'll be able to tell us which quadrants a particular angle lies in. Okay, moving on. One thing, happy birthday, Kayla. I hope it's an awesome one and you have a great day. Okay, all the best, huh? Okay, next thing that we're going on to is trigonometric functions in the Cartesian plane. Now, guys, all I've done here is just drawn some angle theta. Now, with that, as you guys have seen, it'll have a y value, an x value, and an r value. Now, you guys have learned that sine, cos, and tan is, for example, sine is opposite over hypotenuse, cos is adjacent over hypotenuse, and tan is opposite over adjacent with their reciprocals. Okay, but with this particular section, what we want is we want our trig functions in terms of x, y, and r. Okay, so sine is y over r, and then the reciprocal is cosec, which is just the opposite of this, will be r over y. Cos is x over r, the reciprocal is sec, which is r over x, and tan is y over x, and the reciprocal is cot, which is x over y. Now, you remember we learned that silly little rhyme that was, what was it? Silly old hens cackle and hackle till old age. That helped you remember what they were in terms of opposite, adjacent, hypotenuse. We have another little rhyme to help us remember what it is in terms of x, y, and r. And it is this. Shelter your rear. So sine, which is s, is y over r. Cos x raise, so cos is x over r, tan your exterior. So tan is y over x. Okay, so that's just a silly little thing to help you remember what it is. What I would do is just remember this little rhyme for your first three, sine, cos, and tan, and then just remember what your reciprocals are for sine, cos, and tan, and then you can just flip these ones here. Okay, so you don't have to remember a little rhyme for these ones. All right. More than often, you will be using it in terms of x, y, and r. Right, so let's have a look at the next thing. Okay. Example 1 is saying to us, complete the table below, which is this one here, and determine the signs of the trigonometric ratios in each quadrant. Circle the positive trigonometric ratios in each quadrant. So, if we look at quadrant 1, which is over here, quadrant 2 over here, quadrant 3 here, and then quadrant 4, which is over here. Okay, so if we look in quadrant 1, we know that our x values here are positive, because I'm looking in this quadrant here, 1. Our x values are positive, and our y values are positive. Now, r is always positive, no matter what, grade 10s, because r is a length, okay, and a length has to be a positive value, it can't be negative. So I can put r's to be positive for each one of these things. R will always be positive. So let's have a look at this now. Now we know that sine is y over r. So, which I'm looking here now, y over r. So positive divided by positive, that's a positive. Let's have a look at cos, x over r. So we have a positive over a positive, that's a positive. Let's look at tan, y over x. So we've got this over this, so it's positive over a positive. That is positive. So if we have a look here in quadrant 1, sine, cos, and tan are all positive in the first quadrant. Let's move on to the second quadrant now, which is this one over here. Our x values here are negative. Our y values here are positive, and r is positive. Okay. Let's have a look at what sine is now in the second. It's y over r, so we have a positive over a positive, that gives us a positive. Cos is x over r, so that's a negative over a positive, which gives us a negative. Tan is y over x, so it's a positive over a negative, and that gives us a negative. So let's have a look in quadrant 2 now. Quadrant 2, sine is positive, cos is negative, tan is negative in this quadrant. Let's have a look at quadrant 3 now. Quadrant 3, our x values here in this quadrant are negative. Our y values here are negative, and our r is always positive. So sine is y over r, so we have a negative over a positive, gives us a negative. Cos is x over r, so we have a negative over a positive, which gives us a negative. And then tan is y over x. So we have a negative over a negative, which gives us a positive. So in the third quadrant, sine is negative, cos is negative, tan is positive. Let's move on to the last quadrant. Our x values in this quadrant are positive. Our y values in this quadrant are negative, and r is positive. So sine is y over r, so we have a negative divided by a positive is a negative. Cos is x over r, so we have a positive over a positive is a positive. And then tan is y over x, so we have a negative over a positive, which gives us a negative. So that means in quadrant 4, sine is negative, cos is positive, tan is negative. And what we can do now is we can build up something called a cast diagram. So remember that this is quadrant 1, 2, 3, and 4. What I can do now is we can call it the cast diagram. And how it works is I say this. I start here, C-A-S-T. And what does it mean to us? It means that all trig functions are positive in the first quadrant. We saw that over here. They're all positive in the first quadrant. S stands for sine. So that means only sine is positive in the first quadrant. And there we knew it. In the second quadrant. In the second quadrant, only sine is positive. And there we knew it, okay? Cos is negative, tan is negative. So only sine is positive there. The other two are negative. If we look in the third quadrant, T stands for tan. So only tan is positive in the third. And there we saw tan was positive. The other two were negative. And then the last one, C stands for cos. So only cos is positive in the fourth. And we saw that over here. The other two were negative. So just remember cast, grade 10s, C-A-S-T, and that will tell you which trig function is positive or negative in that particular quadrant. Okay. Going on to example 1 here. So example 1 is saying, in which quadrants does theta lie? Okay. So we're given two bits of information here. We're given that sine theta greater than 0 and 90 is less than theta and theta is less than 270. In other words, theta lies between 90 and 270. All right. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to mark that one with a tick and that one with an X. Okay. And if I put in my cast diagram, just C-A-S-T, this will help me answer this. So this is saying sine theta greater than 0. In other words, if something is greater than 0, it is positive. So which quadrants is sine positive in? Well, it's positive in the first quadrant, and it's positive in the second, okay? Because the A stands for all, and the S stands for sine, all right? Now I'm going to work with this little bit of information here. Remember that this is 0 degrees, 90, 180, 270, and then 360. So where is between 90 and 270? Well, between 90 and 270 is these two quadrants here. So I'm going to put an X for that quadrant and an X for that quadrant there. Now I look where both the tick and the X lie. And they lie both in this quadrant here. Okay. So this lies, whatever this thing is, lies in quadrant 2. And I can actually put a little arm there and a theta. Okay. I'm going to do exactly the same thing for this. I'm going to mark this one with a tick and this one with an X. Okay. This is saying cos theta less than 0. In other words, where is cos negative? Something that is less than 0 is negative. So we know that cos would be positive here and positive there. So it will be negative in this one and negative, sorry, with a tick, negative in this one, negative in this one. Okay. Then this one here is saying between 180 and 360. So there's our 180. So I'll mark this with an X, and 360, mark that with an X. Where do they both agree? In the third quadrant. So I can draw my little arm with my angle. Okay, moving on to the next one. Mark that one with a tick and that one with an X. Our cast diagram. This is saying tan must be bigger than 0. If something is bigger than 0, it is positive. So we know that they're all positive there, and tan is positive there. This one here is saying where cos is greater than 0. In other words, where is cos positive? Well, it's positive there, all of them, and it's positive here in this quadrant. Where do both of these things agree? Right here in quadrant 1. So I know my angle will lie here. Okay. Last 3, grade 10s. Okay, again, I'm going to mark this one with a tick and this one with an X. Draw in our cast diagram. Okay, this one is saying cos greater than 0. In other words, where is cos positive? So all positive there and cos positive there. This is saying between minus 180 and 360. Well, there's 180 and there's 360. So it's there and there. Where do they both agree? Over there in the fourth quadrant. So I know my angle will lie somewhere in that quadrant there. Okay. Mark that one with a tick and that one with an X. All right. Sign greater than 0. In other words, where is sign positive? Well, it's positive there and there. All right. Between 90 and 270, well, there's 90 and 270 ends there. Where do they both agree? In that quadrant 2. So I can draw my angle in that quadrant. Okay, last one, grade 10s. I'm going to mark this one with a tick and that one with an X. Okay, sine theta less than 0. So in other words, where is sine negative? Well, sine is positive here and here, so it must be negative here and here, because only tan and cos are positive there. The next one, where is tan greater than 0? So where is tan positive? Tan is positive here, and it is positive there. Where do they both agree? Over there in the third quadrant. So I can draw my angle now, somewhere in that quadrant. Okay. Right, grade 10s, I would like you to do exercise 5.12 for me, number 2. Thank you very much.